Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. It's Tuesday. I'm live once again on both Instagram and Facebook, so I'm just waiting for some of you to join. So hopefully you're having a great morning today. It's a beautiful day here in Arizona. Absolutely beautiful. We couldn't have a better time of year right now. I don't know how many out there that watch are in Arizona, but what a great time of year. It is so beautiful. So I'm out looking at the sunshine, drinking my coffee, waiting for our live today. So give it a few minutes, folks, and we'll dive in. I have an awesome topic today. It's a big topic. It's a popular topic, and it's one that many of you have asked me about, commented on, responded to articles on. So this is a big one. It's a big day. It's a great day to join. So anyone out there in Facebook, I'm going to get started in a second. Wave if you can. So it's a mama bear mug today for those of you keeping track. Mama bear. All right, well, it is Tuesday and I am Dr. Trisha Pingel, and this is your morning checkup, both here on Facebook and Instagram and wherever else this streams after that. Today we're going to be talking about the thyroid, specifically low thyroid function, which is a very, very popular topic and one that I will warn you, which is a good thing, but I'm very, very passionate about. And when I'm passionate about something, I speak very fast and get very involved. And hopefully that will keep you excited. But if you're someone that feels like it's too much or you can't keep up, never fear. I have an article on this at drpingel.com, okay? I have a couple YouTube videos on my YouTube page that will also go into this. So don't worry. And then lastly, if you really want a comprehensive understanding of the thyroid with more information than I'm even going to give you today, my book, Total Health Turnaround, has an entire chapter on it. So I have a lot of resources out there for you guys for this particular issue because I am so passionate about it, and stress is so involved in thyroid function, and so many thyroid cases go completely undiagnosed or overtreated or undertreated. So I want to talk about these today. Good morning to all of you in Facebook that are saying hello. Hello, welcome. Nice to have you. Okay, so once again, I'm going to dive in. Let's do it. I love this topic. Love it, love it, love it. All right. First of all, it's estimated that 20 million Americans have thyroid disease. 20 million, that's a lot. Okay, and today we're going to focus on low thyroid function. Obviously, there are also people who have high thyroid function, hyperthyroidism, and that will be a topic for a different day because that's a whole nother wealth of information. Although a lot of the things I'm talking about today, for those of you that have hyperthyroidism, will still apply. So still pay attention. Stress is always something you have to manage, okay? So on low thyroid function, which is also called hypothyroidism, that's our topic today, okay? Levothyroxine, which is a generic of Synthroid, is one of our top medications in America, okay? This is a very common condition, and I'm gonna guess that many of you out there, I'm going to take an estimated 60-some% of you out there listening may be on thyroid medication or told that you have a thyroid disorder or know someone directly in your household or close by that has a thyroid disorder. This is very, very, very common, okay? But I do find a couple scenarios that are very common to what I see as a naturopathic physician. Number one, I find that many people don't feel better on the medication once the hypothyroidism is diagnosed. A lot of the time they feel worse, no different, or just slightly better, or other symptoms occur. I also, even more commonly, have people saying that they feel like they have something wrong with their thyroid, but everyone keeps telling them it's normal. Any of you out there? Yeah, you go to the doctor, you're like, I'm really tired, my hair's falling out, I just don't feel right. And they're like, oh, your thyroid's fine, don't know what it is, take care. You know, I see that very commonly, and that's unfortunate because if there's symptoms, it's the body telling you that you need to find the cause. If it's not the thyroid, then what is it, folks? Right? So we're going to talk about that too. It may not be your thyroid, but how do you know? You don't know until you look, and you have to look at it in its entirety. And you also have to look at the surrounding hormones involved in thyroid function, surrounding nutritional deficiencies. You have to look at the whole picture. I never accept the "it's not that, take care" response. If I don't find something, it means I have to go find it, right? You're not looking in the right places, right? If you lose your keys and you go to the kitchen and they're not there, you go look somewhere else, right? Common sense. So if you're not feeling well and you have some of the symptoms I'm about to go over, this live today will hopefully help you understand what the thyroid does, what tests to ask for, what you may be missing, how stress is involved, and what are some things that you can do to help diagnose and solve the problem. Cool? Fun stuff. So fascinating, actually. But this is where stress comes in. Stress plays a role in the endocrine system. So just to review, for those of you that may be new, I'm an adrenal fatigue doctor. I look at stress and how stress impacts the body. And the endocrine system is our system in our body that talks about hormones, okay? So thyroid, adrenal hormones, which is like cortisol, and then you've got sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, DHEA, and many more. And then you've also blood sugar, right? Insulin is a hormone, and that's in the endocrine system. So the endocrine system is a balance. It's a delicate balance. So if one hormone shifts, all the other hormones shift, okay? And thyroid is no exception. So if you have an imbalance in the thyroid, it's going to cause an imbalance somewhere else. If you have an imbalance in estrogen, it's going to cause an imbalance in the thyroid. And this is why the symptoms overlap. If I asked you the most common symptoms of thyroid, most people would say fatigue, brain fog, dry skin, hair loss, weight gain, cold or hot intolerance, depression. Okay, these are all the same as menopause, andropause, adrenal fatigue, often diabetes, right? They're all the same symptoms, and that's what makes it so hard to diagnose. And that's why so many thyroid conditions actually get missed, because these symptoms all overlap. If you're looking at a symptom and trying to treat a symptom in this scenario, you won't always find it. You have to look for the cause. Okay, so many people fly under the radar when it comes to thyroid, and that is called subclinical hypothyroidism. You guys are all quiet out there today. Have any of you heard of that? Subclinical hypothyroidism? So what that means is you actually have a poor functioning thyroid, but your labs are essentially coming back normal, or your screening labs are coming back normal. Okay, and we're going to talk about what a screening lab is. I won't leave you in the dark. I promise. I promise. So you guys are so quiet today, though. As I said earlier, symptoms occur when any hormone is out of balance, and that could be in any system in the endocrine system. So if you're having fatigue, you're having hair loss, you're having dry skin, you're having weight gain, you're having, low levels of magnesium or vitamin D are very entwined with the thyroid as well. If you're noticing these symptoms and no one's giving you an answer, this is very important. You need to look at the entire thyroid, okay? Very hard to determine the cause if you don't look at everything. Traditionally, the thyroid's a very black and white issue. The screening lab that is normally run is a TSH, and they basically say, okay, you're thyroid or you're not thyroid, the low thyroid or not, black and white. It's not that black and white. In my particular arena of medicine, in natural medicine, there's a little bit different philosophy in that. If you have health here and you have disease here, it's a process to get there. I don't know too many people that have a normal thyroid and the next day wake up and it's diseased, right? This is a process. Through over time, you see little shifts in the body that move you towards a disease process. This is very particular in the endocrine system, okay? You don't just wake up with the disease. That's not the way it works. So screening these numbers along the way and watching for small changes as you go is how you find this type of thing. It's how you listen to your body. It's how you figure out what these symptoms are. The coolest thing about our body is it tells us when we're not well, if you're listening. Okay, so if you're having a symptom that's coming up, you need to be looking. I've referenced this before with blood sugar, how, you may have an 88 and then you have a 90 and then you have a 92 and then you have a 95 and then all of a sudden you're pre-diabetic. It didn't just happen overnight, folks. It was a slow progression. Thyroid is no different, okay? Unless you were born with a congenital thyroid disease, and this happens in younger childhood, most of the time, the thyroid conditions are happening slowly over time. And I'm going to help you identify that today. Cool. I see someone saying taking in information. Good. Okay, you're out there. Yes, love it. Okay, so symptoms of low thyroid, I just went over for those of you that missed. I mean, really, the most common that I see is fatigue. Fatigue, lack of motivation, depression is fairly common, just not feeling like you're quite yourself. But I also see a lot of overlapping symptoms like heavy menstrual periods or low testosterone or constipation, just pain in joints. People think they have arthritis, but it's thyroid. Okay. So these are all symptoms that overlap with each other. Okay. So if you have any of these symptoms, you have to look at everything. Okay. Before I dive into how to do that, I do want to touch on a condition that's also very popular in thyroid, and that is Hashimoto's thyroiditis. That's a mouthful. I always say it sounds kind of like a bomb. It sounds like a threat or something. Hashimoto's thyroiditis. But it's not. It's actually an autoimmune condition, or they consider it an autoimmune condition where the body attacks its own thyroid production. So ultimately, it will result in low thyroid. Unfortunately, a lot of the times it's not diagnosed until it's run rampant. Very important to always look for Hashimoto's if you're having those symptoms, whether or not your thyroid comes back low or not. And I will talk to you about that. I promise. I'm bringing it up. I think it's estimated, the estimates are kind of all over the place with Hashimoto's, but around 14 million people have it. 14 million in the US alone. Wow. I've seen other things that say, 2% of the population, more common in women for sure. You got to ask why. Why more common in women? I believe it has to do with estrogen and how estrogen plays with the thyroid. Okay. So if you have an estrogen issue, more likely you also have Hashimoto's, right? There's a lot of other conditions that mix with Hashimoto's as well. Celiac disease tends to have more Hashimoto's. Other autoimmunities tend to overlap with Hashimoto's. So there's a lot of different causes to that, and something that all of you should be aware of, because often it's there and it's not found. And if you don't find it, it will wreak havoc. Okay. So if all of you are keeping up with me, let me take a sip of coffee and I'm going to show you a little diagram, because I'm not quite hyper enough, right? All right. So let's talk about the thyroid, the physiology of the thyroid. Once again, I'm so passionate about this. It is so fascinating to me that the thyroid can compensate pretty much any situation and save your life. It is amazing, okay? But because it has that ability to compensate to any situation, it also can cause a lot of problems. Okay, so you have to kind of be aware of that. So first of all, for those of you that have no idea what I'm talking about and have no idea what the thyroid is, it's a little butterfly shaped gland, okay, in your neck. And it releases hormones that are involved in basically your everyday regulation. So metabolism, heart rate, it keeps you alive. That's what the thyroid gland is. And I just saw a question. Someone wants me to speak on MTHFR and blood clotting disorder. Yes, ma'am, will do. I have MTHFR mutations, so it's very close to my heart, and I will definitely consider doing that one for sure. Okay. Thank you for the suggestion. All right, so this is a handy dandy little diagram. Let's see, I got to get it in both cameras on Instagram and Facebook here. This is a diagram of thyroid function. Okay, so you're welcome, Amanda. All right, so TSH, this is not a thyroid hormone. It's a pituitary hormone from the brain that is released to signal the release of thyroid. So what you'll see is if the TSH is really high, that means that the brain's saying, oh goodness, give me more, give me more, give me more. If it's really low, the brain's like, no, I have enough thyroid. Oh my goodness, don't give me more. If it's in this normal range, it's considered normal. Now, the problem with that, folks, is that it is pretty well documented. Even I think it was the Journal of Endocrinology stated that this range is too big for TSH. So the range is something like 0.5 to 4.5. And that's actually quite a big range. So if you were at 0.5, the general assumption is you have too much thyroid, or you're borderlining too much thyroid. And if you're at 4.5, now you're low thyroid. The problem is a lot of people hang in the middle. Okay, so it's very important to know what your normal is. Okay, what is your normal? For example, my normal is around 2. My levels are great, right? I have other people that have a TSH of 2 and their hormone levels are not great. Okay, so everyone's a little bit different. It's important to watch over the course of time. Is it going up? Is it going down? You need to look at the whole picture. There was a study, I think it was in 2012, that said that any level, and this is from an endocrinology journal, okay, said that any level above 2 was worthy of further investigation. Yet most of you out there may get a 3.5 on your TSH, get that phone call from your doctor that says, oh, your thyroid's fine, don't worry about it. Is it? You need to look at the rest of the pathway. Okay, so let's talk about that pathway. So TSH comes from the pituitary, from the brain. Okay, and then it prompts the manufacturing of T4. Now, T4 is our first thyroid hormone. It comes directly out of this little butterfly gland. It is made from essentially amino acids and iodine. There's other minerals involved. Those are the primary things. So a lot of people talk about iodine and how that relates to thyroid. This is where, that arrow is where iodine primarily plays, okay, from the TSH to the manufacturing of T4. I promise I'll explain why we care. Just give me a little bit of time. Bear with me, okay? So T4 is manufactured in the thyroid gland. Now, T4 has to be turned into T3 in order to do a bunch of activities. So this is just the manufacturing. So if you are creating a product, this is when you create your product, but you haven't sold it yet, okay? In order to make money, you have to sell it. You can make all the products you want, but if you're not selling it, you're wasting money, right? You're wasting production time, right? Thyroid's the same way. So you're producing this T4. It needs to go to T3, okay? This is when you sell it. Now you can see, and probably cannot read, over this little arrow, there's a ton of things I wrote here, okay? This conversion from T4 to T3 requires a lot. Number one, it requires minerals, okay? Selenium, magnesium, zinc, iodine, those types of things. If you don't have enough, you won't sell as many products, right? Right. So the other thing, probiotics, there's a lot of research on the gut flora and the conversion of T4 to T3 going on right now. It's a very active area of research. Very cool. I always recommend you've got to have good gut flora. You've got to have good digestion in order to maintain your thyroid. Why? One, the flora is involved in the signaling mechanism between the gut and the brain. Number two, how do you absorb selenium, magnesium, zinc, iodine? You absorb it from your food. Okay, so if you don't have good digestion, if you're under a ton of stress and you're running from a bear and you're not digesting your food, you might not be getting the nutrients that you need effectively to move T4 to T3, right? Think about that one. Okay, this all interplays. There are also things that can block this conversion or slow. I shouldn't say the word block. Our body never really blocks anything. Medications block things, right? Our body downregulates. It's kind of like if you have a freeway and there's a detour. And so you still get to where you want to go, but it might be a little bit slower or it may go in a different way. So that's what our body does naturally. So there are things that cause diversion, that cause a detour, okay? And those things, I'll read them here. Estrogens. Estrogens can downregulate the conversion of T4 to T3. So if you're someone who has an estrogen dominant condition, polycystic ovarian syndrome, very heavy menstrual periods in men, that could be prostate enlargement as an estrogen state, anything where you have too much estrogen in relationship to progesterone. Now keep in mind, ladies that are on bioidentical hormone therapy, look, I prescribe it, okay? I'm not opposed to hormone therapy in the right case, but if, let's say you have a lot of hot flashes and you've been given high dose estrogen to maintain those, you could also downregulate the thyroid from that. So that's why you always have to look at each part of the endocrine system when you treat with a hormone. And that's any hormone, thyroid hormone, sex hormone, adrenal hormone, all those things have to be looked at. If you don't, then you could be potentially making another part of the endocrine system off, okay? So estrogens are ones that are big key factors to me. Also, medications, toxins, low minerals, those are the things that can inhibit that conversion. So always pay attention to that. So let's say that I see someone who has a TSH that's somewhat normal. They have a normal T4 production, but their T3 production is low. What does that tell me? It tells me the problem is in here, right? The problem is not here if you're producing an T4. So if you were to give more T4, what would happen? You wouldn't feel any better because it's not going to go to T3. You have to look where the problem is and treat that spot, okay? So if somebody's having trouble converting T4 to T3, that means that I have to investigate all of this to figure out why. And it isn't until I find the why that I can tell you what to do, right? So would I give T4 in that scenario? Maybe not until I know what's going on, right? I do see a couple questions coming through. I might address them at the end, but one was on iodine while on Synthroid. Once again, iodine plays a role here, okay? So it would depend on your individual situation. Do you have an iodine deficiency or not? If you don't have an iodine deficiency, no, I wouldn't give iodine. If you have an iodine deficiency, I might, right? All comes down to each individual person. There is no concrete treatment for thyroid. You have to look at all of it, okay? Okay, and I have someone else saying they feel like there's a lot going on, but your blood work was fine. Yes, listen to me, listen to this, right? You need to get all this screened. I have tons of information on my website. Like I said, my book, Total Health Turnaround, goes into all this as well. So take a look at these resources, okay? We will get you under control. So there is another situation that can happen from T4, because I'm sure you can somewhat see that there's an arrow on the other side, right? And on top of the arrow, it says stress. Okay, so what can also happen is T4 can go into more of a storage form called reverse T3. Okay, I have had other doctors, I've had patients that talk to their doctor and say, we've never heard of reverse T3. Guess what, folks? It's a standard lab available at Quest, LabCorp, whatnot. You absolutely can get it. It's not specialty, but reverse T3 is more of a storage form, like a hibernation, right? If you were a bear and you went into hibernation, you've got to slow your metabolism down, save energy, conserve energy. Same thing kind of happens in us, especially in times of stress. If you've been running from a bear or you've been under a ton of stress repetitively, your body starts to anticipate that you're going to have more stress. Okay, and that's where a lot of symptoms has come from, and that's what I talk about a lot, right? So when your body's preparing for that stress, what it does is it stores a little extra thyroid and says, I may need that. Like I'm gonna, for every T4 that comes in, I'm gonna send 1 over here and 2 over here, right? So you start to see a slow development of a preference towards storage of thyroid rather than usage. Once again, going back to health and disease, you see this over time. This isn't something overnight. Maybe your reverse T3 is at 12, and then a year later it's at 15, and then a year later it's at 19, right? It's coming up, which tells me that the body is metabolically shifting. Instead of going to T3, it's going to T4, or going to, more coffee, going to reverse T3. You guys following me so far? Are you having fun? I love this topic. It's a great topic. Okay, so you go to reverse T3, that's a storage form. So very important to look at the balance between how much T4 is coming, how much T3 is coming, and how much reverse T3 is coming, okay? And then I find you should always screen for Hashimoto's antibodies. Why? Because they could be there and you don't know they're there. The standard of care right now is that you wait for the thyroid to drop, then you screen for Hashimoto's. Not cool. Make sure it's there. See if it's there or not, because if it's there, eventually you will have TSH impacted. So often the TSH is going up and down with relatively normal levels because there's an antibody there doing it. So you really have to know that, okay? So screen, there's 2 of them. TPO antibodies and thyroglobulin antibodies. Now, some people are genetic, some people are environmental. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on Hashimoto's specifically just because I could go on all day, and I'm sure you guys have things to do today. I find that many people develop these antibodies due to stress. And when you lower stress, it reverses. Now, some people won't reverse it altogether, particularly if there's a genetic component, okay? But I can tell you, when someone is under a ton of stress and their reverse T3 goes up, I almost always see the antibodies go up as well. If the antibodies continue to go up, it will affect the TSH, which will affect the T4, which will affect the conversions, which then, if you're going to reverse T3, guess what, folks? Goes back up and worsens the antibodies and comes back through again. And you get in a cycle on this side of the diagram when we really need to be going to this side. Make sense? So always screen those antibodies. Now, while I'm on screening, I want to say that every hormone, the way hormones work is they bind and they release. So what you'll do is you'll release a hormone and it'll be stored to something called a globulin, which is another one of my favorite words in medicine, globulin. Love the word globulin as well. So it'll stick to a globulin and it won't be used, kind of like sticky gum, okay? It isn't until it's released from the gum and floats around the blood that you actually see a metabolic impact. Thyroid is the same. So you may see on your thyroid labs that your doctor screened T4, but they screened a total T4, okay? There is a difference between a total T4 and a free T4. Total T4 is all the T4 you have, whether it's bound or not, and you can't tell the difference. So you could have 10 T4s and 9 of them are bound with 1 free, and it would look normal on labs because it would be within the range of total. It's really important to know the free, okay? Because you could have a normal total and a low free, okay? The free matters. Same goes for T3. So there's a free T4 and a free T3. Those are very important. Now, if your doctor wants to screen that against a total to see how many are bound or not, that's helpful. That's cool. Like, I'm okay with that, but make sure the free is in there. On the T3, there's another one that's commonly screened called the T3 uptake. I'm not going to go into a ton of that on right now. It's helpful if it's combined with many other things. By itself, it doesn't tell me a whole heck of a lot, okay? By the way, I see a ton of questions coming through on Facebook. I will go through afterwards and answer them just because I see so many. I don't want to keep jumping around, but I promise you, I'll come back and answer them. So keep throwing them at me and I will, okay? All right, so we talked about the labs. It's important to screen free levels. It's important to screen all of those levels, okay? I also recommend in any situation with the thyroid that you're also screening the rest of the endocrine system. Why? Because all the hormones want to stay in balance. So if your thyroid's off, guess what? Your estrogen might be off, or your adrenal hormone might be off, or your blood sugar might be off. And that is why a lot of these conditions overlap. Okay, so you have to look at not only the full thyroid panel, but you also have to look at the adrenal function. Where's the cortisol at, right? Where's the DHEA? Insulin and glucose, very important because those are going to move too when you're running from a bear. I mean, think of all the things that happen when you run from a bear. All of those things happen simultaneously. The body doesn't just say, oh, you know what, I'm going to impact the thyroid, but who cares about the blood sugar? No, they're all intertwined, right? If hormones are storing in the thyroid, they might also be storing somewhere else as well, particularly with estrogen. Knowing the balance between the estrogens is very important. So you need to look at all of that and then look at it all together relatively like a scale. And that's how you find the cause of anything, okay? Especially in the endocrine system. So hopefully that kind of helps give you an overview on the physiology. I want to talk about what you do about it in a second, okay? But that's the general physiology. Remember, there are multiple parts to the thyroid. So go back and take a look at your annual screening from your doctor and see what they ran when they told you your thyroid was normal, low, or high, right? Look at what they ran. Did they run the whole panel? Very important. Okay. Now, if you don't have any symptoms, okay, you feel great. You're out there doing everything you're doing. You feel great. And they just run a TSH and say it's normal. It probably is. But if you have symptoms and they're not being found, then that's very important to screen the whole thing and assure. I like to, when I see patients, I like to tell them with 100% certainty, I don't see anything in the thyroid, but I can't just send them out. Okay. I can't just send them out and go, I don't see anything in your thyroid. Take care. You know what I mean? Very important for me to look at everything and find the answer if I haven't found it elsewhere. Okay. And that's our job as physicians, right? Overturn all the boxes and find what we have to find. So what do we do about it? What do we do, Dr. Pingel? Okay. First of all, as I said multiple times, you have to find the cause. Okay, because if let's say you have a selenium deficiency and the selenium deficiency is prohibiting the conversion of T4 to T3 and we go put more T4 in, you know, the doctor says, well, your T4 was a little bit low. I'm going to give you some Synthroid. It'll make you feel better. And we give Synthroid at T4, right? We get a backup here. Then what happens when we get a backup? Sorry, Facebook camera's a little bit higher. Sorry, guys. T4, there we go. T4. What happens with a backup? Well, it'll go to reverse T3. What happens when it goes to reverse T3? It has the potential of causing antibodies and feeding back on the TSH, making the thyroid go down lower. Then what happens? You up your T4, right? Because you go in, you say, I'm not feeling well. The doctor says, well, let's bump it up. So you bump it up and you get back in that cycle. You have to look at the cause. If all of these things are normal, right? And the T4 and the T3 are low, but all these other things were found to be working appropriately, then using thyroid supplementation is often quite helpful. You can use different combinations. Synthroid is not the only thing out there. It's personally not my favorite, although I do use it depending on the person. But there are combinations of T4 and T3. You could just give T3. There's different brands of T4, some of which are not gluten-free. Important thing to note for some of you celiacs out there, make sure if you're on thyroid medication, because I think it's highly likely that the one you're on is indeed gluten-free, okay? There's some that are not, okay? And they don't tell you that, so, you know, you got to do your due diligence and check. But very important to find the cause. If you're being exposed to a toxin, you're going to have to remove that toxin. You can give as much thyroid as you want. It's not going to give you the desired outcome if you haven't removed the obstacle to cure. Naturopathic doctors, one of the biggest things, first things we do, remove the obstacle to cure. If there's something blocking a pathway in the body from going to where it needs to go, we got to remove it, right? If you're on the freeway and you're trying to get off the exit and it's blocked, you got to figure out how to get around it, right? Or you've got to fix the problem so that you can open up the overpass. That's what the body does too. We are a bunch of different pathways. We're a bunch of different diversions. We're a freeway system. So if there's something blocking you, you got to remove it. Key, okay? I've had so many people that come in and are on medication and don't feel better. Okay, that's because whatever the reason was is still there. Okay, so definitely fix the problem and then determine if the thyroid still needs to be fixed. It might correct itself, folks. Might not, but you know, that's the process between the doctor and the patient, right? That's the relationship. That's what we go for, is trying to figure out where the problem is and work together to find a solution. That's our job, right? So always look at that before you treat. As far as natural things you can do every day that you can do regardless of whether you found the obstacle or not, managing stress is huge. And I know I've probably beaten the horse on this 1,000 times in these lives, but you have to manage your stress. You have to get away from the bear and you have to down-regulate the way that you respond to the bear, okay? You have to. Mind, body, yoga, Tai Chi, gratitude training, whatever you have to do to take yourself out of that fight or flight throughout the day. We are not built to be in fight or flight mode all day long. We are not built for it, okay? We have to calm ourselves down. So I do have a bunch of articles on the website, drpingel.com. I have ways to release stress. I have articles on adrenal fatigue. I have articles on adrenal herbs. Please check it out. And obviously I'll be doing all these little sections of live so that you can learn more about each thing as I go. So definitely get plenty of rest. You want to make sure that you're sleeping. Okay, so keep yourself at rest, go into that parasympathetic sleep mode. One of the herbs, I talked about an herb yesterday, actually. If you missed it, it was called ashwagandha, also known as withania. That's a great herb for the adrenal system. There are some, people that cannot take it, so please read that article or check out the live yesterday. But that's a great one when it comes to managing stress with thyroid, because it allows the body to calm down and come out of that fight or flight state. Exercise. So this is a hard one for a lot of you thyroid people because you don't feel well, right? You feel tired. You don't want to exercise. You feel lack of motivation. But the bottom line is, if you're in that hibernation state, you have to become metabolically active. So you're going to have to fight against that urge and get the body to move. Okay. That's what you have to do. Okay. So give it your best. A great multivitamin mineral, very important. Why? I just talked about a bunch of minerals that are key in thyroid function. A great probiotic, okay? So great probiotic, great multivitamin mineral. What's a great multivitamin mineral? That sounds like an awesome topic for another live. I'm going to write that one down because there is a difference. There's a difference between some at different places. The forms of the vitamins, are they absorbed well? Do you have gut issues? People with gut issues need an even different type of multivitamin than others. So I'll come back to that. How about that? You guys tell me if you'd like that topic. If you would, send me a note saying, yes, multivitamins, let's talk about those. And I promise I'll put it on a live. But you need to have a good multivitamin mineral. You definitely need to have a good solid diet. Now, I talk about a plant-based diet all the time. I know some of you agree, some of you don't. That's cool. If you're a meat eater, add the meat in. But remember that your minerals highly come from a variety of plants. So you have to have a lot of plants in your diet and you have to have good digestion, okay? All of that is only improved by supporting those darn adrenal glands, right? People with Hashimoto's, there is quite a bit of research on a gluten-free diet with people with Hashimoto's, okay? Gluten-free. Please don't throw tomatoes at me or bread at me. I promise you, there's actual documentation on this. And it's interesting to me that people that have celiac disease tend to also have Hashimoto's. They both have to do with gluten. Now, there's a lot of debate. Is this the gluten itself, or is it maybe the processing of the gluten that we do here in America? You know, it could be. You know, there's a lot of speculation on that. The bottom line is whatever the cause is, for some reason, when Hashimoto's patients eat gluten, it tends to worsen the antibodies. So we're just kind of going with recommending a fairly gluten-free or completely gluten-free diet if you've been found to have those antibodies. Whether or not they're impacting your T4 or not, go gluten-free, focus on plants. Okay. We talked about medications. I always look at those as the last option once I've fixed all the pathways and removed all those obstacles. So, but there are plenty of options out there. Speak to your doctor about it. Remember to treat the other endocrine imbalances, or at least investigate them so you know where they're coming from. Okay. So that's a lot. You guys still surviving out there? I see a ton of questions coming through Facebook. I don't even know, let me see if any of them I can answer, because many of you have the exact same questions. So let's see. Thank you. Lacey said this is very helpful to her. Thank you so much. I'm so glad. Like, that's great. Someone was asking about testing the thyroid. I did go over that in this live. It's absolutely at drpingel.com. You can search the article on thyroid. It will be there. I'll even put a link below your comment when we're done with this so you have it directly. And I'll read your story. I see you're sharing a little bit of a story, and I really appreciate that. I really do, guys. I mean, you know, I became a doctor for a relationship. I didn't become a doctor to just dictate. I like these stories. These are great, and I will respond to them individually. Do they usually check on normal labs for reverse T3? Well, I mean, if you see a naturopath or a functional medicine doctor, absolutely, most likely. If you see, and I have many, by the way, I have many primary care doctors that do check for this type of thing. There's a lot of doctors that I've worked with that are very open to it. There are some that are not. Some just, you know, you need to request it or see what you can do. But yeah, a lot of doctors are starting to as they learn more information about the thyroid. It's not an unknown lab. I've just had a couple doctors say, I've never heard of that. So I just want to make you know that it is something available. You know, you just sometimes have to be your own advocate and ask for it. 20 years of stress. No one's mentioned this. Yeah. Blaming sleep apnea. Well, sleep apnea overlaps with all of this as well. These all overlap. You have to look at everything. Okay. So if it's sleep apnea, my question that I would ask the doctor is, why do I have sleep apnea? And then try to reverse that. Okay, so always ask the question why. Anytime you see a doctor, they give you a diagnosis, ask the question why and try to have a conversation. That's very, very, very important, okay? And if not, do some research, search some things. I've written about a wide variety of topics, so please feel free to use my website as a resource, okay? What's noticeable thyroid dysfunction in the body without signs of body changes? There's usually a symptom, unless you're at the very early stages, okay, which you can screen in labs and you'll see in labs, but you may not see in physical function. Thoughts on levothyroxine? I think I mentioned that. Levothyroxine is a T4, okay, that goes in. It's a lot of the times the wrong therapy, if the conversion isn't right. Many times it does great. I do know a lot of people who take it, they feel great, their thyroid is well balanced. That's fine, okay? There are also different brands of levothyroxine. Levothyroxine is the generic. So some people won't do well with the generic, but will do well with Synthroid. Or people that are allergic to gluten tend to be on Tyrosint. So there's different varieties of the levothyroxine to consider as well. No chocolate if you have thyroid issues. Depends. Dark chocolate is a very valuable thing. As I know you were in my live on chocolate on Friday, so you've learned about that one. Would I share after this? Yes, I share all my lives, folks, so you can watch us as many times as you want. And I actually have one on my YouTube channel with a dry erase board explaining things. Okay, someone asks if I have a book. I do. I do have a book, and it does talk about thyroid. The book is about adrenal function and how stress impacts each area of your body, how it impacts the thyroid, how it impacts the sex hormones, how it impacts your blood sugar, how it impacts your heart, how it impacts your mood, anxiety, depression, gut health. It links stress to all of those and gives you solutions within it to look at and things to ask your doctor. Far more detailed than I even give in the lives, which is great. I also have a 30-day program with videos and that guides you through how to manage stress and change stress. All of this is on my website. If it's something that's of interest of you, you'll be able to find it there. If you can't, please send me a note and I will absolutely send over the info. But drpingel.com, drpingel.com will take you to wherever you need to go. The book is on Amazon. But you can get to it from my website, okay? Is the earth flat? You're funny. I like you. So yes, I'm trying to see. I think there's so many more down here, and I will go through and answer them. Guys, thank you so much for being a part of today. I love the questions. I love the interaction. If this was helpful to you, please share it. Share it. Like it. Let's spread the information. Obviously, hypothyroidism impacts so many people. So if you have the education and you have the information, you can better manage it. If you need any resources, you have any questions, please type them in the threads below or visit drpingel.com. I will be here every morning during the week, sometime between 9 and 10 Pacific Standard Time or Arizona time. Tends to be somewhere around 9:30 lately, just because my kids are sometimes delay me, but sometime around this time. So happy to see you here. Great to see some names both on Instagram and Facebook that are continuing to show up. I want you guys to have a fantastic day, okay? And I will see you tomorrow morning. Take care. Much love from the Pingels. Go enjoy this beautiful day. Thank you, guys.